You know, rejection has this strange way of making us feel small, like we don't belong, like we're not good enough. And let's be honest, it doesn't matter how tough or confident we think we are. When we put ourselves out there and someone shuts the door in our face, it hurts. It's human nature. Maybe you've applied for a job and never heard back. Maybe you poured your heart into a project, only to have it dismissed like it didn't matter. Or maybe you've been vulnerable with someone, shared your feelings, your ideas, your dreams, only to be met with indifference, skepticism, or even outright criticism. That kind of thing can shake you. It can make you hesitate the next time you think about taking a risk. And that's the real danger of rejection. It's not just the moment of hearing no, it's the way it sneaks into your mind afterward. It plants these tiny seeds of doubt. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I was stupid for even trying. Maybe I should just stop before I embarrass myself again. You ever felt that? I know I have. But here's the thing. Rejection is never the end of the story. It's not a final judgment on who you are or what you're capable of. It's a plot twist. And the way you respond to it, that's what shapes everything. Most people take rejection personally. They see it as proof that they're not talented enough, smart enough, or worthy enough. But what if I told you that rejection is actually a sign you're on the right path? That it's not a stop sign, it's a test. A way for life to ask, how bad do you really want this? Think about some of the most successful people you admire. Authors, athletes, entrepreneurs, artists. Do you think they got where they are without rejection? No way. In fact, the bigger the dream, the more rejection comes with it. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 different publishers before someone finally took a chance on Harry Potter. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the very company he built. Now, what do all these stories have in common? They could have quit. They could have said, well, I guess that's it for me. But instead, they used rejection as fuel. They turned it into motivation. And that's the mindset shift we need to make. Instead of seeing rejection as a door slamming in our face, we need to see it as a stepping stone, a lesson, a chance to get stronger, and most importantly, a source of motivation. But I get it, it's not easy. The emotional sting of rejection is real. And if we don't handle it the right way, it can stop us from trying again. So let's talk about how to actually use rejection to our advantage. Let's break down how to take that no and turn it into something powerful. One of the biggest mistakes we make when facing rejection is thinking it's a reflection of our worth. We tie our self-esteem to whether or not someone else says yes to us. If we get accepted, we feel valuable. If we get rejected, we feel like failures. But that's the wrong way to look at it. Rejection isn't about you, it's about fit. Let me explain. Imagine you're an artist and you submit your work to a gallery. The curator takes one look at it and says, "Not for us." Now, does that mean you're a terrible artist? Number. It just means your style doesn't match what they're looking for at that moment. Maybe they already have a similar artist on display. Maybe their audience is into something else right now. Maybe they just don't see the vision yet. But that doesn't mean your art has no value. The same goes for job interviews, relationships, creative pursuits, pretty much everything in life. A no doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means you and that particular opportunity weren't the right fit. Think about it this way. If you walk into a shoe store and try on a pair that doesn't fit, do you blame the shoe? Do you get angry at yourself for having the wrong size foot? Of course not. You just keep looking until you find the right pair. But when it comes to things like job applications, relationships, or creative work, we take rejection personally. We assume it means we're the problem. We let it affect our confidence. And when that happens, we stop trying. That's the real danger of rejection. Not the rejection itself, but how we let it shape our identity. If we start believing that every no is proof that we're not good enough, we'll be too afraid to go after the things we want. So the first thing we need to do is separate rejection from self-worth. Just because someone doesn't see your value yet doesn't mean it isn't there. Your worth is not determined by someone else's approval. You have to believe in yourself even when others don't. Easier said than done, right? I get that. So let me share a trick that's helped me. Whenever I face rejection, I ask myself, what can I learn from this? Instead of saying, why did this happen to me? I say, what is this teaching me? Maybe I need to improve my skills. Maybe I need to present myself differently. Or maybe, just maybe, I need to keep knocking on doors until I find the right one. The problem isn't rejection itself. The problem is when we stop at the first rejection and assume that's the final answer. And that brings me to the next important lesson. Rejection is not failure. Quitting is. Let's talk about one of the biggest myths we've been taught. The idea that rejection equals failure. We've all felt it. That sinking feeling after hearing no. That urge to retreat, to shrink, to stop trying. It's like rejection taps into something primal inside us, our fear of not belonging, of not being good enough. And if we're not careful, we start believing that every rejection is a sign that we should quit. But let me tell you something. Rejection is not failure. Quitting is. Think about any great success story. How many times do you think they were rejected before they made it? The truth is, the people who achieve great things are not the ones who never get rejected. They're the ones who refuse to let rejection stop them. Let me give you an example. You know Walt Disney, the man who built an empire of imagination? He was fired from a newspaper because they said he lacked creativity. Imagine that. One of the most visionary storytellers of all time was told he wasn't creative enough. If he had accepted that as truth, there would be no Disney movies, no Disneyland, no magic. Stephen King, one of the most successful authors in history, threw his first manuscript for Carrie in the trash after receiving multiple rejections. His wife pulled it out and told him to keep trying. The book went on to sell millions of copies and launched his career. Oprah Winfrey was once told she wasn't fit for television. Can you imagine if she had believed that? These people weren't immune to rejection. They felt it, just like you and I do. But what made them different is that they didn't let rejection define their limits. They kept going. So why is it that some people get rejected and quit, while others get rejected and become unstoppable? The difference is in how they see rejection. Most people see rejection as a final verdict, like a stamp that says, not good enough. But successful people see rejection as information. They take it as feedback, adjust, and try again. They treat it like a scientist running an experiment. If one approach doesn't work, they tweak the formula and go again. Here's what I want you to remember. The only real failure is giving up. If you stop, you guarantee you won't succeed. But if you keep going, rejection just becomes part of the process. It becomes a stepping stone, not a dead end. So the next time you face rejection, ask yourself, am I really failing? Or am I just in the middle of my success story? And that leads us to something even more powerful: how to turn rejection into fuel. So far, we've talked about how rejection is not a reflection of your worth, and how quitting, not rejection, is the real failure. Now let's take it a step further. Let's talk about how to use rejection as fuel to push yourself forward. I want you to imagine rejection as a fire. For most people, that fire burns them. It makes them afraid, makes them shrink, makes them stop trying. But for the people who succeed, rejection becomes the fire that drives them. It fuels them to work harder, get better, and prove themselves, not to others, but to themselves. So how do we turn rejection into motivation instead of fear? It starts with a mindset shift. Instead of seeing rejection as a reason to stop, you start seeing it as proof that you're on the right path. Because if you're getting rejected, it means you're trying. It means you're in the game. And that alone puts you ahead of the majority of people who let fear keep them on the sidelines. Let's be real. Most people don't even try. They're too afraid of hearing no. So if you're getting rejected, that means you had the courage to show up, to put yourself out there. That already makes you stronger than most. But here's the next step. Use rejection as data. Ask yourself, why did this happen? What can I learn from this? What do I need to adjust? Sometimes rejection means you need to improve. Maybe your skills aren't quite where they need to be yet. That's not an insult, it's an opportunity. Instead of letting it break you, let it push you to level up. Other times, rejection just means you haven't found the right opportunity yet. You wouldn't expect to win the lottery on your first ticket, right? The same goes for success. You have to keep playing, keep refining, keep improving. And then there's the most powerful motivation of all, the I'll show you mindset. Now, I'm not saying you should obsess over proving people wrong, but there's something incredibly powerful about using rejection as fuel to push yourself harder. Not from a place of bitterness, but from a place of determination. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Imagine if he had taken that rejection as a final verdict. Instead, he used it as fuel. He worked harder than ever. He turned the rejection into an obsession to improve. And we all know how that turned out. Rejection should light a fire in you. Not the fire of self-doubt, but the fire of determination. The fire that says, I'm not done yet. Watch me. And that brings us to something even more important. How to develop resilience so rejection never slows you down again. If you're serious about achieving anything meaningful in life, resilience isn't optional. It's essential. It's the difference between people who crumble after a rejection and those who rise stronger every time. Think about the most successful people you know, not just celebrities or entrepreneurs, but even people in your own life who seem to push through anything. What do they all have in common? Resilience. Resilience is your ability to take a hit and keep moving. It's your mental toughness, your ability to bounce back when things don't go your way. And here's the secret. Resilience is built, not given. No one is born with it. It's like a muscle that gets stronger every time you use it. So how do you build resilience? First, you stop taking rejection personally. This is huge. Rejection feels painful because we attach it to our identity. We think it means we're not good enough. But rejection is never about you as a person. It's about circumstances, timing, fit, skill level, things that can be improved or changed. The moment you separate rejection from your identity, you take away its power to hurt you. Second, you train yourself to expect setbacks. Most people go into something hoping everything will go perfectly. And when things don't, they get discouraged. But if you go in expecting obstacles, expecting no's, expecting challenges, then when they come, you're not shocked. You're prepared. You see them as part of the journey, not the end of it. Third, you develop a next play mentality. This is something elite athletes talk about a lot. If they miss a shot, they don't dwell on it. They move on to the next play. Because if they stay stuck in what just happened, they'll miss the next opportunity. The same applies to you. When you face rejection, don't freeze. Move on to the next opportunity. Keep playing. And finally, you remind yourself of the long game. One rejection, or even 10, means nothing in the grand scheme of your life. If you keep showing up, keep improving, and keep pushing forward, those rejections will eventually lead you to a breakthrough. It's a numbers game. The more times you get back up, the more chances you give yourself to win. Rejection only defeats you if you let it. But if you build resilience, if you develop the ability to take a no and turn it into fuel, then nothing can stop you. And that brings us to something even deeper, how to actually seek out rejection and use it to accelerate your growth. By now, we've talked about handling rejection, using it as fuel, and building resilience. But what if I told you that the most successful people in the world don't just deal with rejection, they actively seek it out? Sounds crazy, right? Why would anyone want to be rejected? Because rejection isn't just something to endure. It's a tool that, if used correctly, can make you grow faster than anything else. Think about it this way. If you're never getting rejected, it means you're playing too small. It means you're only going after things that feel safe, things you know you can get. And that's a problem, because growth only happens when you push beyond your comfort zone. Let me give you a practical example. There's a guy named Jia Zhang who literally spent 100 days seeking rejection on purpose. He walked up to strangers and asked for ridiculous things: a free plane ticket, a burger refill, even to play soccer in someone's backyard. And guess what happened? Some people said no, of course, but a lot of people actually said yes. By chasing rejection, he discovered something powerful. Most of the limits we think exist are just in our heads. We assume people will say no, we assume we're not good enough, we assume we'll be laughed at. But when we actually take the risk, reality is often very different. So here's the challenge. Start actively looking for situations where you might get rejected. Want to improve your career? Apply for a job you think is just out of reach. Want to grow your business? Ask for a collaboration with someone way more successful than you. Want to build confidence? Strike up a conversation with a stranger, even if you feel awkward. Every time you do this, two things happen. First, you start realizing that rejection isn't that scary. It's just a part of life. And second, you start finding unexpected yeses in places you never imagined. The people who succeed in life aren't the ones who avoid rejection. They're the ones who run toward it, because every rejection gets them closer to their next breakthrough. And that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle: how to take everything we've learned and build an unstoppable mindset that makes rejection irrelevant. We've covered a lot. We've redefined rejection, turned it into fuel, built resilience, and even learned to chase it. But now we get to the ultimate level, the point where rejection doesn't just stop hurting, it stops mattering. This is where you become truly unstoppable. So how do you get there? First, you adopt the mindset of someone who expects to win, eventually. You stop tying your emotions to any single yes or no, and start seeing rejection the same way a scientist sees failed experiments. When an experiment doesn't work, does a scientist break down and give up? They take notes, adjust, and try again. And they do this over and over until they find what works. That's how you need to treat rejection. It's data, not a definition of your worth. Every rejection is just feedback. It tells you what needs work, what's not the right fit, or sometimes that you're just one step away from a breakthrough. Second, you stop waiting for permission. Most people don't get what they want in life because they're waiting for someone to validate them. They think they need a job offer to prove they're skilled, a relationship to prove they're lovable, or an opportunity to prove they're capable. But the truth is, you don't need permission to be great. You decide that for yourself. If you believe in your ability to improve, to adapt, to figure things out, then rejection becomes irrelevant, because you know that if you keep showing up, your time will come. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Finally, you make a lifelong commitment to keep moving forward, no matter what. This is the real secret. The people who succeed in life aren't necessarily the smartest, the most talented, or the luckiest. They're simply the ones who refuse to quit. You've heard the stories: J.K. Rowling rejected by 12 publishers, Walt Disney fired for lacking imagination, Oprah told she wasn't fit for TV. These weren't just rejections, they were tests. And the only reason we know their names today is because they kept going. So here's my final challenge to you. From this moment on, make rejection your ally, not your enemy. Stop fearing the no and start embracing it, because every no you hear is one step closer to the yes that will change everything. You're stronger than rejection. You're bigger than any no you'll ever hear. And if you keep pushing forward, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself, nothing can stop you. Go out there, take risks, face rejection head on, and become the kind of person who refuses to be denied, because that's what unstoppable people do.